Welcome to Reformed Thinking. Today we are heading straight out to the edge of the map. I want you to picture the Negev desert. It's hot, it is dry, and it is, completely unforgiving. And we're looking at a scene that, on the surface at least, makes absolutely no sense at all.
It really is a striking tableau if you really stop to look at the details. The visual contrast alone tells the whole story before anyone even says a word.
Right, because on one side you have Abimelech, and he is the king of Gerar. And standing right next to him is Fishel, who is the commander of his entire army.
The top man.
The top man. And these guys represent the city of man in all its, its glory. They have the chariots, the spears, the fortress, all the structural authority. They are the heavyweights in this situation.
Precisely. They represent the absolute pinnacle of military and political strength in that region. You have to imagine the bronze armor just glinting in that harsh desert sun. They project stability, force, and established order.
And then on the other side of this scene, looking, I imagine, pretty dusty, you have Abraham. And let's be honest about where Abraham is at right now. He is a stateless nomad. He is living in a tent. He's just gone through this massive family crisis where he expelled his son Ishmael. He looks vulnerable. He looks like a guy you could just push over.
By every earthly metric, Abraham is the weak party here. I mean, he is a resident alien. He has no standing army, no sovereign land of his own yet. He is, for all intents and purposes, a squatter living on the fringes of the king's territory.
But, and this is the central mystery that we are going to crack open today. The guy with the army comes bowing to the guy in the tent. The king is the one initiating the treaty.
It's backwards.
It's completely backwards. He is the one asking for peace. So the question we have to ask is, why? Why does the city of man, armed to the teeth, fear a solitary old man?
That is the question. And the answer is not in Abraham's military strategy because, well, he doesn't have one. The answer lies in what Abimelech has seen. And this is why this isn't just a history lesson about some ancient treaty. This is a masterclass on the doctrine of Providence and really the believer's witness in a hostile world.
I love that. So we aren't just talking about ancient politics here. We are talking about how the world sees God working in and through us.
That is right. We are digging into how the city of God relates to the city of man. And we have to be careful because as Christians, we so often fall into one of two ditches.
Okay.
We either isolate ourselves, the holy huddle approach, or we just assimilate. We hide who we are to avoid conflict. But Abraham shows us a different path, a third way.
A way where the world eventually has to stop and recognize the sheer weight of God's glory on a believer's life.
That's it. They can't ignore it forever.
Okay, let's unpack this. We are in Genesis chapter 21, specifically verses 22 through 26. And it starts with this incredible moment of vindication. Verse 22 says, God is with you in all that you do.
And that statement is you could say it's the exegetical heartbeat of the entire passage. And remember who is saying it. This isn't Sarah or Isaac, encouraging him.
Right.
This is the pagan king.
That is wild. It's like the CEO of a completely secular corporation walking into your office and saying, look, I don't know what it is, but God is clearly backing your projects. It just doesn't happen.
It is similar to that. And we have to analyze the power dynamic here.
Yeah.
As we said, Abraham is weak, politically. But the initiative comes from Abimelech. He comes to Abraham. That signals a massive shift in perceived strength.
So something has changed.
Something has definitely changed. Stability and real blessing in a fallen world, it attracts attention. And Abimelech has been watching. He's been taking notes.
So let's dig into that phrase, Elohim Imka, God is with you. Is he just buttering Abraham up here? Is this just, flattery to get a good deal on trade routes or something?
I really don't think so. The Hebrew implies this is an inescapable conclusion. It's based on empirical observation. It isn't flattery. It is a concession of reality. I mean, just think about the dots Abimelech has connected.
Well, he has had a front row seat to the Abraham show for a while now.
He certainly has. First, he saw the supernatural protection of Sarah back in Genesis 20. I mean, his entire royal house was plagued because of her. God intervened directly. That's not something a king forgets.
No, you don't forget it when your whole house gets sick and God shows up in a dream to tell you why.
Exactly. Then he's seen the miraculous birth of Isaac. We have to remember, Abraham and Sarah were geriatric. Biologically, that birth was an impossibility.
Right. Having a baby at 100 years old and your wife at 90 is definitely going to make the neighbors talk. It's not normal.
Not at all. And then there's the economic success. Abraham's flocks are thriving. They're growing in a hostile desert, in a place where resources are scarce and everyone is struggling. Abraham is getting richer.
So it's not just one thing. It's this pile of evidence.
It's the cumulative weight of these events that forces the pagan mind to realize this man is not operating by human ingenuity. There is another power at play here.
It's like Abraham's life has become, I don't know, legible to the outsider. They can read the providence of God on him even if they can't read the Torah.
That is a beautiful way to put it, and this links directly to our confession, to the Westminster Confession of Faith, Chapter 5, Section 1, on Providence. It teaches that God, the great creator, upholds and governs all creatures and actions to the praise of his glory.
So it's not that Abraham's putting on a show.
Not at all. He didn't need a billboard or a marketing campaign. The ordinary workings of his life, his family, his sheep, his movements, were so infused with divine blessing that the veil was pulled back for a moment, and even a pagan king could see it.
Now, here's a key question, I think. Does this mean Abimelech is saved? Is he converting? Because saying God is with you sounds pretty religious.
And that is a critical distinction we absolutely must make.
Yeah.
This is very likely not saving faith. It's not regeneration. This is an operation of what we in theology call general revelation and common grace.
Okay, can you break that down for us? What's the difference?
Well, John Calvin talks about the sensus divinitatis, this innate sense of the divine that is inside every human being. It's been suppressed by sin, but it's there.
Right.
When Abimelech sees the overwhelming external evidence of God's power in Abraham's life, that sense is triggered. He respects the power, but it's probably out of fear of consequences, not out of a love for God.
So he's not saying, I love your God, let me worship him.
No.
He's saying, your God is scary and powerful, and I do not want to be on the wrong side of him.
That is it. It is a pragmatic conclusion. He realizes that opposing Abraham is like opposing the cosmos itself. It's a bad business decision.
And we see this biblical pattern repeat itself, don't we? This isn't a one-off event.
Not at all. Later, a successor, another Abimelech, says the very same thing to Isaac in Genesis 26. We have plainly seen that the Lord is with you. Potiphar sees it with Joseph in Genesis 39, that the Lord was with him and made him succeed.
And it goes all the way to the prophets, right? It's not just in Genesis.
It is. Zechariah 8.23 has this incredible eschatological image, this picture of the future, where 10 men from all the nations will grasp the garment of a single Jew and say, "Let us go with you, for we've heard that God is with you."
Wow.
Abraham is the prototype for that future reality. His life is the initial fulfillment of that promise.
That is huge. So the vindication of the believer doesn't always look like the world converting en masse, but it often looks like the world being silenced by the undeniable reality of God in our lives.
Yes. The mouths of critics are shut not by our clever arguments, though they have a place, but by the undeniable reality of God's presence. A life lived under his blessing is the loudest apologetic.
So Abimelech sees this power. He gets, understandably, a little nervous, and he decides he needs to lock this down. He needs some kind of security. And that brings us to part 2, the stipulation. Verse 23. He asks Abraham to swear an oath.
He does. He says, "Swear to me here by God that you will not deal falsely with me, nor with my offspring, nor with my posterity." It's a very specific demand.
I just find the irony here delicious. You have a pagan king insisting that the oath be sworn Elohim by God.
He knows how the world works, doesn't he? He knows that a treaty is only as binding as the authority underwriting it. If Abraham swears by the gods of Gerar or by the king of Gerar, that means nothing to Abraham.
It's just words.
Just words. But if he swears by his God, the God who closed up the wombs of Abimelech's entire household, then Abimelech knows Abraham is bound by a power he fears.
He recognizes that Abraham's moral framework, his fear of God, is the only thing that can truly restrain him. That in itself is a powerful testimony.
It is.
The world knows we have a higher standard, even if they don't share it. They see it.
Indeed. Abimelech recognizes that the fear of God is the only truly reliable standard for justice and truth in a fallen world. He's outsourcing his legal security to Abraham's theology.
Now, Abimelech uses a specific word here for what he wants. He asks for kindness.
He uses the Hebrew word chesed.
Which is, I mean, that's a heavy hitter in the Bible. That's not a light word.
It is. It's so much more than just be nice to me. It's often translated as loving kindness, loyal love, or covenant faithfulness. It's the word that usually describes God's tenacious, unstoppable loyalty to his people.
So Abimelech is co-opting this sacred covenantal language for his political treaty.
He is. He's trying to elevate this non-aggression pact into something sacred and almost familial. He wants cheesed. He wants this deep, abiding loyalty.
But then he gets a little revisionist with the history, doesn't he? He says, show me kindness according to the kindness that I've done to you.
Yes, there's a definite distortion there. Let's, as you say, fact-check the source text. Did Abimelech show kindness to Abraham? Well, yes. He eventually gave him land and sheep and money.
Right, but there's a big but there.
A huge but. He only did that after God threatened him with death in a dream because he'd taken Sarah. His kindness was motivated by sheer terror.
Right. It was, I was nice to you after your God told me I was a dead man walking if I touched your wife.
The world so often reframes pragmatic survival as moral benevolence. Abimelech is spinning the narrative. He's saying, I was good to you, so now you know me. You be good to me.
And Abraham doesn't even argue the point, does he? He just lets it go.
He lets it go. He understands the bigger picture here. He's not going to get bogged down in a he said, she said about past events.
And Abimelech is asking for a lot here. It's not just for himself, my offspring, my posterity. He is looking way, way down the road.
He fears displacement. That's the core fear. He sees Abraham growing stronger. He's seen the miracle of Isaac's birth, and he is terrified that this nomad's children are going to one day wipe out his children and take over his kingdom.
So he wants to secure a perimeter of peace, not just for his lifetime, but for generations.
For his entire legacy.
This brings up a really practical question for believers today about how we interact with the government or other secular authorities. Because, some Christians would say, don't make treaties with the world, stay separate, come out from among them.
And that would be, I believe, a misunderstanding of the Reformed view on the civil magistrate. If we look at the Westminster Confession, chapter 23, it is very clear that it is lawful for Christians to interact with civil authorities.
So it's okay to engage.
It is. We can make treaties. We can sign contracts. We can obey laws. Separation does not mean total isolationism. That's more of an Anabaptist view, not a Reformed one.
So Abraham isn't compromising his faith by entering into this treaty with a pagan king?
No, not at all. He is engaging in what you could call international diplomacy. He is using the common grace structures available to him, like a legal treaty, to protect the spiritual seed, to protect Isaac.
That makes sense.
He needs peace so he can raise Isaac in the land and establish the worship of Yahweh. He's using worldly means for a spiritual end.
That is a great key takeaway for all of us. We can and we should cooperate with unbelievers in lawful matters like, property contracts, peace treaties, zoning laws, without surrendering our distinct identity as God's people.
We are in the world, but not of it. But being not of it doesn't mean we can't sign a lease or pay our taxes or make a peace treaty.
So Abimelech puts the terms on the table. Swear by your God you won't hurt me or my kids. And we get to part 3, the response, verse 24. And Abraham's answer is, well, it's shockingly short.
I will swear. In the Hebrew, it is just one word. Ishavea. That's it.
No, let me think about it. No, let me run this by my legal team. No, well, it depends on what you mean by deal falsely.
The brevity is the point. It indicates absolute integrity. This is a character study in what it means to be a man of your word. Abraham places himself under the curse of his own God if he breaks his word. He doesn't need to hedge.
It is such a stark contrast to modern pragmatism. I feel like today, everything is about the fine print. We're always looking for the loophole, the exit clause.
That is the spirit of the age. But the believer is called to live coram Deo before the face of God. And that means your yes is yes and your no is no. When you fear God, you don't need 50 pages of contingencies to make you an honest person.
Your word is your bond because it's sworn before an audience of one.
Precisely.
So Abraham says, I will swear. He commits. But then, and here's where it gets really, really interesting, we hit part 4, the confrontation.
Verse 25 starts with a massive structural pivot, a huge but. But Abraham reproved Abimelech.
Structural, but I love it. He agrees to the peace, but he has a bone to pick first. The ink isn't even dry on the verbal agreement, and he's already lodging a complaint.
And it is a serious one. It's not a minor issue. It's about a well of water that Abimelech's servants had seized.
Now, for us living with modern plumbing, a well is like maybe a quaint garden feature, or something you use if the city pipes break. But in the Negev, this is life or death.
It's everything. Water is the most precious and fought-over resource in the desert. To seize a well, and the Hebrew word used here, gezel, implies robbery or violence, is an act of aggression.
It's not just trespassing.
No, it's a direct threat to the existence of the clan. If you take my well, you are actively killing my flocks and eventually my family. You are trying to drive me out of the land.
So Abraham isn't just complaining about a minor property dispute. He is defending his life and the life of the promised seed, Isaac.
And notice the sequence.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. He says, I will swear, establishing his good faith, and then immediately pivots to the grievance. This defines what true peace is. Abraham refuses to engage in peace faking.
Peace faking. I like that term. What do you mean by that exactly?
It's when you smooth over sin to avoid awkwardness. It's pretending everything is fine when it very much isn't. It's the let's just get along mentality that ignores injustice. Abraham knows that true, lasting peace cannot be built on a lie or on an ignored injustice. If he signs the treaty but lets them keep the stolen well, the treaty is worthless. It's a house built on sand. The resentment will just rot the relationship from the inside out.
That is so applicable to us. I mean, how often in our own lives, in our families or churches, do we just swallow a grievance because we want to keep the peace, but really all we're doing is letting a wound fester?
Constantly. We choose the appearance of peace over the substance of it, but biblical peacemaking includes the courage to confront. And Abraham uses a specific method here. The text says he reproved Abimelech.
What does that word mean?
The Hebrew verb is yakak. It implies a legal forensic argument. He's not whining. He is adjudicating. He is setting matters right. He's presenting his case.
He isn't gossiping to Sarah in the tent about it. He isn't complaining to official behind the king's back. He speaks directly to the authority.
He indicts the king to his face. And in doing so, he defends his property rights, which, by the way, is a direct implication of the 8th commandment, you shall not steal, as understood by the Westminster Confession in chapter 19.
So defending what's yours isn't unchristian.
Not at all. Believers are not called to a false doormat pacifism. Defending the stewardship entrusted to you by God, in this case, the water needed for the covenant family, is an act of righteousness.
So he says, okay, I'll sign your treaty. I will swear this oath. But first, we need to talk about my well that you stole. He's willing to swear the oath, but parallel to that, he must settle the grievance.
Right. It's a package deal. Integrity without isolation and peace with justice. You cannot have one without the other.
So how does the king take this? I mean, he's just been accused of theft. We move to part 5, the defense, verse 26. Abimelech's reply is, well, it's interesting.
It is. He says, I do not know who has done this thing. You did not tell me, and I have not heard of it until today.
The classic I didn't know defense. Plausible deniability. The question is, do we believe him?
That is the million-dollar question. And there are really two possibilities here. Possibility A, it's genuine ignorance. He is a king, he has a bureaucracy, he can't micromanage every shepherd, and maybe his servants went rogue and seized the well on their own initiative.
Okay, that's possible.
Possibility B, it's feigned ignorance to save face. Oh, shocking. My servants did what? I am appalled. Tell me more.
It feels a little bit like when a modern company gets caught doing something shady and the CEO is hauled before Congress and says, I had no idea this was happening in the lower levels of my organization.
That is a perfect modern comparison. This is what we call theological realism. Sin hides in systems. Sin loves to hide in delegation and distance. Servants commit crimes in the name of the king, and the king can plausibly deny it all.
But Abimelech also throws a little bit of shade back at Abraham. He doesn't just claim ignorance. He says, you didn't tell me.
And that is a fair point, isn't it? Peace requires clear and honest communication. The phrase he uses, until today, implies that the issue is only being solved now because it is finally being named.
This just highlights the necessity of explicit agreements. You can't just assume people know what's wrong or that they'll do the right thing.
Right. Peace requires clear, sometimes written, term stipulations. Because human memory is selective and sin is social. We need a trust but verify dynamic in a fallen world. The oath that follows clarifies ownership and creates a public memory so this can't happen again.
And if Abraham had stayed silent to keep the peace, that treaty would have collapsed in 6 months when the servants came back to the well and there was another fight.
Absolutely. The whole thing would have been for nothing. Abraham's reproof, his confrontation, was necessary for the long-term survival of the peace.
So we have seen the vindication, the stipulation, the response, the confrontation, and now the defense. Let's try and pull all these threads together. This is part 6, theological synthesis.
If we step back and look at the believer stance that Abraham models here, it's a perfect balance. He is peaceable without being pliable. He's willing to make a treaty, but he will not be pushed around or have his rights trampled.
And he is righteous without being quarrelsome. He brings up the, well, not to start a fight, but to end an ongoing injustice and establish true peace.
Correct. He models a kind of peace through strength. But it's not the strength of chariots and spears. It is the quiet, firm strength of God's manifest presence.
And of course, we can't miss the Christological connection here, because this is Reformed thinking, and we know the Old Testament whispers the name of Jesus on every page.
It does more than whisper here. I think it shouts, Abraham is a type. He's a shadow of the great mediator to come, Jesus Christ. Think about the imagery. The enemy seeks to seize the well of life. The Philistines, the world, want to cut off the water supply for God's people.
And Jesus comes and declares that he is the living water.
Right. Jesus is the one who brings the living water that can never be seized. But notice the difference. Christ did not negotiate a truce with sin. He didn't make a deal with injustice. He defeated it. Abraham secured a well with 7 lambs and an oath. Christ secured the wells of salvation for all his people with his own blood.
He is the greater Abraham who establishes the new covenant. And that covenant is sealed not just for a generation or two, like Abimelech wanted, but for all of eternity.
And this is key. He makes peace with us. We have to remember that by nature, we aren't Abraham in this story. That's not our default role.
Ooh, that is a twist. If we're not Abraham, who are we?
We are Abimelech. Or maybe more accurately, we are Abimelech's servants. We are the thieves. We have seized glory that belongs to God. We've tried to take what is his. We are the ones who need to come to the greater Abraham, to Jesus, and say, please, make a treaty of peace with us.
And because of Christ's his loyal, covenantal love, he says, I will swear. He brings us into his covenant, not because we deserve it, but because of his grace.
He does. And that is the gospel right there in Genesis 21.
And that is amazing. So for you listening today, there are really 2 clear applications from this. If you are identifying with the Abimelech perspective, if you are outside of Christ, you need to realize you are stealing God's glory, and you need to make peace with the king through his son.
Yes. But for the believer, for the one who is already in that covenant of grace, the application is about how you live in this world, right here and now.
Don't fear the faces of men.
Spot on. Whether it is your boss, the secular authorities, your hostile neighbor, your greatest defense is not your cleverness or your arguments. It is a life lit so transparently before God that the world cannot help but respect the divine hand that is upon you.
And second, don't be afraid to address the stolen wells in your life.
That is the practical courage we all need. If there is a grievance, if there is an injustice in your relationships, in your work, in your church, address it with truth and with courage. Don't hide it or pretend it's not there. True peace is on the other side of that difficult conversation.
It is such a dense passage of Scripture. Who knew a simple dispute over a hole in the ground could tell us so much about the gospel and our public witness as Christians?
That is the beauty of Scripture. Every detail matters. Every word is there for a reason.
Before we go, I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. We often think God vindicates us by taking us out of the trouble or by removing our enemies entirely. But here, God vindicates Abraham by being visibly with him right in the middle of the trouble. He doesn't remove Abimelech, he makes Abimelech bow. And maybe that's how he wants to work in your life too.
A powerful truth to consider.
Thank you for diving deep with us today. This has been Reformed Thinking. Keep thinking and keep living, Coram Deo.